Well, what did you expect to happen? Why were you surprised? This is what I imagine my father said to my mom shortly the next morning after my 10th birthday party, when all of the misadventures that we were getting up to became known in the light of day. It was the summer between 5th and 6th grade. Like I said, I turned 10 or 11, one of those two. And I had several of my friends out for a sleepover. Well, as you can imagine, we got up to some mischief. We did not sleep because it was an all-nighter. Why not? It's summer, we're only a couple weeks out of school. Let's live a little. We stayed up, we watched Twilight Zone videos. Someone rode my bike into the mailbox and knocked it sideways. We climbed out on the roof. We had this dormer window. I had a dormer window in my bedroom on a very, a nice slant. It wasn't very steep. And we sat out there and watched the sunrise. It was so nice. And of course, all these things come to light the next day. Mom is all worried about it. And it's like, well, it's a bunch of 10, 11-year-old boys. What did you expect was going to happen? Why are you so surprised? Why are you so surprised? I think this is essentially what Jesus is telling his disciples in this passage today. They walk by the temple, this mighty structure. It's been taking 80-some years to build. And they're so impressed by it. And Jesus says, you see this building here? Not a single stone will be left one on top of another. And then they come to him privately and say, when is this going to happen? And he says, in essence, why would you be surprised by this? This building is of this world. Everything of this world will pass away. Why would you expect this to last forever? In some sense, he's pushing on the disciples to say, why are you trusting in this worldly institution? Why are you trusting in the symbols of an earthly kingdom? Did you expect that this world would last forever? Do you expect that the Jewish nation will last forever? This temple has already been destroyed once. Why do you think it will last forever? Why have you put your trust in what is not God? Later, after this passage, he will even say, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words, the words of Jesus, they will never pass away. The world will carry on as usual. It's part of the admonition there. There'll be wars, there'll be rumors of wars, there'll be earthquakes and famines. False prophets will come and claim to be the Messiah, claim to be the one to save all these people. And Jesus says, don't be surprised. I'm telling you ahead of time. This is how the world works. This is how the kingdoms of the world operate. But you, my disciples, are not of this world. You, my disciples, have put your trust in things that will last, in the words of God and in the kingdom of heaven, not of earth. The institutions, the buildings, the places of power in this world will not endure. They will all eventually fail. But it is God's kingdom and God's words and the life of the Trinity that does indeed last forever. Why are we so surprised when powers and institutions, when buildings rise and fall, when things that we've worked at come and go? This is the way of the world. A friend of mine asked a parishioner of his, a group of them anyway, but asked them, what is it that keeps you up at night? They were studying the Psalms, and one of the Psalms, I would lay on my bed at night and so forth. And an older gentleman said, all the institutions and things that I depended on for the last however many years are falling apart. And that keeps me up at night. And I think to him, Jesus would say, why are you surprised? Put your trust in me and in my words, because they will endure. In fact, that is, I think, one of our biggest pitfalls, stumbling blocks, difficulties. When we end up putting our faith in the things of this world and not in the kingdom of heaven and the King of heaven. And so we come then to what Hebrews says we should do. The day is coming, Jesus says, and the author of Hebrews reiterates, the day is coming when all of these things will pass away and all that will be left is God and his kingdom, a new heaven and a new earth. We should expect this, and we should live differently because of it. And so the author of Hebrews encourages us and tells us to hold fast to our faith, hold fast to the hope and trust that we have put in God, and to provoke each other to good deeds and love. Provoke. Not just like gently prod, but, get us going so that we continue in good deeds and acts of love. In light of all the decay and ruin and death of this world, we are to encourage each other to act from faith, hope, and love, not from doubt or despair or hate. So what are, then, we supposed to do? What are these good deeds? What are these acts of love? Well, later on in Hebrews, he gives us a few examples. He tells us to lift our drooping hands, strengthen our weak knees. In other words, to pray. In light of all this going on, one of the main good deeds that we do is to encourage each other in prayer. Are we engaged in public and private prayer together? Well, in public prayer together, in private prayer, with some regularity. He tells us that we are to pursue peace with everyone. And that's not hyperbole. We are to pursue peace with everyone. If we are in some way at odds or frustrated with our neighbors, who maybe don't cut their grass quite right, or who put the wrong political sign in their yard, we are to go and strive for peace with them. He tells us to be careful that no root of bitterness springs up amongst us. Don't let things fester. Now, that doesn't mean you just yell at each other, although sometimes a good yell is helpful. But if there's something that is on your mind that you just can't get rid of, don't sit on it. Go. Be reconciled. Do not let bitterness get a hold of our hearts. He tells us to not neglect to show hospitality, for by doing so, some have entertained angels. A reference there to Abraham and his 3 visitors. Don't think that your home is your castle that you must defend against all invaders and enemies, but rather to show hospitality, to welcome people in, have them enjoy a meal and share a cup of coffee over a bit of dessert. He encouraged us to remember those in prison. And in those days, prison was much worse than today. There was no guarantee of food as there is in our prisons today. Or in other words, to go and visit those who are alone. Don't forget those who are not able to get out. Don't forget those who are by themselves. Keep your marriage vows, he tells us. Be faithful to those whom you have vowed. You continue. There's several of these, but I could be here all morning. It'd be great. It says to keep our lives from the love of money. Be content with what we have. Imitate the faith of those who have gone before you. Don't get carried away by all kinds of strange teachings. And remember that we have a lasting city. We are citizens not of this world, but of heaven, of the New Jerusalem. Even if we have lived in the same town all our lives, and over in the other town for 103 years maybe, that is not ultimately our home. Our city, the thing that lasts, the things that we trust in, are not of this world. And last, he says, do not neglect to do good by sharing what you have. The times indeed feel dark. Or maybe they don't. I don't know. At least for me, when I turn on the news, I usually turn it off in about 5 minutes. Wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes, famines, the way of the world continues. But the encouragement of Hebrews, the exhortation, is that we who are of the heavenly city must live differently. And we must look to each other and see if we can encourage and provoke, that we might not fall into despair or hate or fear, but continue in faith, hope, and love, that we might be a witness to say to the world, this is not how everything always will be, and that where you put your heart and trust is in things that will last, and in the heavenly kingdom that is yet to come. Amen.